In case you were wondering, my name is Mina. When I was a young child, children were to be seen and not heard, especially at my house. And often it was better to not be seen either. I spent a lot of time with books in a corner, traveling to faraway places and pretending to be the characters in those books and enjoying those adventures in my mind. I got a lot of the books that I read from my school library. I could pretend to be a nurse like Clara Barton or a teacher like Anne Sullivan. It was really exciting to think about being a sharpshooter like Annie Oakley. But one of the things that really touched my heart was being a pilot like Amelia Earhart. When I was a teenager, I joined the Civil Air Patrol. The Civil Air Patrol is a civilian branch of the Air Force, and we did search and rescues when planes went down, and we learned about aviation history and the future of aviation. And one thing I wanted to be was an Air Force pilot. Unfortunately, in the 70s, that was not a possibility. So I gave up my lofty dreams, eventually got married, and ended up in Lynchburg, Virginia at Liberty Bible Institute. That's where I got my PhD, which is putting hubby through. And we took classes together, and the class that we took together was sign language. This is Sue Wilmington. She's known as the Lady in the Circle. She was the first interpreter on television. She did interpreting nationwide, and she was a very prim and proper lady, very staid, but she had a wonderful sense of humor. She really enjoyed when Saturday Night Live spoofed her interpreting. Here are the commentators reading the speech, and the interpreter is yelling out loud for the hard of hearing. This really helped to show how much of an impact that the signing that she was doing was doing in the country. We learned American Sign Language in a form called total communication. It involves the different hand shapes, facial expression, placement on your body, and movement. And it also places the words on your mouth at the same time they're on your hands. We use the manual alphabet, which is made up of 22 different hand shapes and hand positions. And every number also has a unique sign that is attached to it. As we practiced our signs, well, if you remember that Helen Keller learned language from Annie Sullivan, W-A-T-E-R, water. We practiced our signs in a church setting. We would set up so that the deaf audience could see the speaker behind us, and we would wear dark clothing so that our hands had a contrast to the clothing we were wearing. And we would share the information that the speaker was giving. Now, this poor interpreter is extremely confused. She heard the words that were going on and interpreted them, but the reaction from the audience was very different than what she was expecting, because he's really not doing what preachers are supposed to be doing there. And her face shows that her confusion. Facial expression is very important in sign language. The deaf cannot hear the nuances of your voice. They cannot tell by your expression of your tone of voice what you mean by a certain word. So this is the sign for happy. In this, you should be able to see the joy welling up out of me. You should see my happiness. This is the sign for sad. Hopefully you can see the tears running down my face, and this expression is sad. Now, some people think this is a little bit melodramatic, but I disagree. Think about the faces of children as they express their emotion. They live their whole life through their face, and you can see how they're feeling. This is my grandson, Royal. He just found out that the Easter Bunny did not put any candy in those plastic eggs he'd been picking up all morning and putting in his basket. Only money. He is sad. His face fully expresses his feelings, and that's what I try to show when I sign. Now, the movement of signs. This is the sign for the word summer. That exact same hand shapes and motion, if done under your chin, is the sign for dry. But you take that sign and you run it across your nose, and it becomes the sign for ugly. Now, I look very ugly in this picture, but I'm expressing the word, the sign, with my facial expression. Sign language is used in a lot of the performance arts. It's used to express music, it's used in interpretive dance, it's used in theater, and I use it when I tell stories. Here I am, I'm talking about the most fantastic, greatest thing that ever happened in my life, and I'm filling the space with my signs and expressing my feelings with the depth of my signs. Now you take that same hand motion and you pull it down closer to your body, and it's the sign for wonderful. Now, when I was telling this story, I never said the word wonderful, but I was able to use my sign language to help engage the audience and to express my feelings and to express the tone of what I was speaking. Now, I've used sign language in my community in very different ways. Here I am helping my friend Lou Rivera announce his candidacy for City Council. I've also used signs language when I help friends interpret their wedding ceremonies for their friends and family to be able to fully participate. I use my signs at work. When individuals come into the library, I'm able to talk with them and welcome to the library space, to talk to them about the different things that the library offers, and to be able to share with them and make them feel welcome in that library space. Now, I talk with my hands. Most of the time when I'm talking with my hands are saying something, whether the person in front of me knows it or not. But I've used this beautiful language of sign language and incorporated it into my life. And unlike that little girl, I want to be seen. I want to be heard. But most important, I want each of you to know me. And sign language helps me express that portion of myself.